There are crimes that destroy lives. And then there are those that destroy the very idea of what it means to be human. They said the woman had it all: beauty, money, and a husband powerful enough to make her untouchable. But power means nothing when the heart decides to turn dark. This is not fiction. This is the real story of a mother who turned her pain into punishment, a lover who believed betrayal deserved blood. Before we begin, make sure you're subscribed, because what you're about to hear isn't just a crime story. It's a descent into the kind of darkness only heartbreak can create. In Atlanta, people lowered their voices when Imani Devereaux's name came up, not out of respect, but survival. She was born into power, and power, in her world, wasn't earned. It was inherited, soaked into her blood before she could walk. Her father, Richard Devereaux, was the kind of man who could make people disappear with a phone call. To the outside world, he was a real estate tycoon. To everyone who mattered, he was a man whose name carried weight in every backroom deal across Georgia. And from him, Imani learned her first lesson: that love was a weakness and control was safety. By 25, she had mastered both charm and intimidation. She could light up a fundraiser or silence a room with a single look. In photographs, she was the embodiment of grace: silk dresses, diamond hoops, eyes that never revealed what they were calculating. Behind those eyes was a memory of her father's empire and a determination to never be a victim in anyone's story. When she met Marcus King, it was at a charity gala in Buckhead: marble floors, champagne, and 1,000 fake smiles. He was tall, confident, and the kind of man who didn't flinch when he realized whose daughter she was. That alone drew her in. By 2008, they were married, Atlanta's power couple. To the cameras, they were radiant. To the papers, a symbol of elegance reborn. 2 years later came the twins, Liam and Micah, identical, bright-eyed, adored by both parents. But for Imani, motherhood was not just love. It was legacy. She told her sons bedtime stories about kings and loyalty, always ending with the same words: a mother's love never dies. Those words would one day take on a meaning no one could imagine. Their home was a sprawling estate just outside Alpharetta: iron gates, marble fountains, manicured lawns. Yet inside, the air was always cold. Every movement was monitored, every call recorded. Imani ran the house like her father had run his empire: organized, strict, untouchable. And then there was Pharaoh, her father's final gift before his death: a massive cane corso, raised not for companionship but for protection. Pharaoh obeyed only her. Sometimes, late at night, she'd go to the kennel barefoot, whispering softly while feeding him slabs of raw meat. Neighbors would later recall the sound of her voice: calm, steady, like a lullaby meant for something dangerous. Marcus, meanwhile, was growing restless. He wanted legitimacy, to leave behind the shadows that funded their wealth. He wanted clean contracts, global recognition, freedom. To Imani, that sounded like betrayal. She believed the world outside their name would never forgive them, and anyone who tried to walk away from that power was already an enemy. The distance between them grew in silence. He traveled more, laughed less, and began avoiding her gaze at dinner. She noticed everything: the subtle perfume on his shirt, the change in passwords, the whispers when he took calls in another room. Control began to slip, and with it, the one thing she feared most: humiliation. Her friends said she was changing. She lost weight, stopped wearing color, and started quoting her father again. Her housekeeper remembered finding her one night in the hallway, staring at her father's portrait, whispering, "Men always forget who made them." By the end of that year, her smile had become something else: no longer warmth, but warning. The same reporters who once praised her began to wonder why she'd vanished from public life. And behind those gates, something was beginning to fester, a silence that grew heavier by the day. Because for Imani Devereaux, love was never meant to be shared. It was meant to be owned. And when ownership started slipping from her hands, she didn't mourn it. She planned to take it back. From the outside, the Devereaux estate looked like a dream carved out of success. 6 acres of manicured gardens, marble floors that gleamed beneath crystal chandeliers, and a driveway lined with magnolia trees that framed perfection. But dreams are fragile things, and sometimes they're built over graves. Inside, Imani Devereaux kept everything immaculate. Every photograph, every mirror, every surface told a story she could control. Family portraits were perfectly staged, the twins dressed in matching suits, Marcus's arm around her waist, her smile sharp and still. To Atlanta's elite, they were the royal family. To the people inside that mansion, they were prisoners of appearance. Marcus had started coming home later. He blamed business, said he was working on expansion contracts downtown. But Imani could read a man's silence better than most people could read a book. He had changed. He was too careful now, deleting texts, turning his phone upside down, pretending not to notice her eyes watching from across the dinner table. At night, when he thought she was asleep, she could hear the faint click of his messages being typed, and each sound chipped away at the illusion she'd spent her life building. One night, the twins were already asleep when Marcus came in. His cologne was different. His shirt carried a scent she didn't recognize, soft, sweet, foreign. She didn't ask about it. She just stared at him. When he finally met her eyes, she smiled. The kind of smile that says, "I know." The next morning, she ordered the housekeepers to change the linens, replace every candle, and burn the perfume-scented shirt. To everyone else, it was routine. To Imani, it was war preparation. The only creature she trusted completely was Pharaoh, her father's final gift, a massive cane corso with amber eyes and muscles that rippled beneath his coat. He lived in a steel kennel at the edge of the property, a fortress unto himself. Most people were afraid to go near him. The twins refused to, after he once growled low when they ran too close. But Imani loved him. Sometimes, when the night grew quiet, she would step out barefoot into the moonlight, her robe brushing the grass, and feed him raw meat with her bare hands. As he tore into the flesh, she whispered softly, "Loyalty never wavers, Pharaoh. Not like people." The dog would lower his head, waiting for her next word, as if he understood. Marcus didn't. He had begun to speak to her differently. Calmer, distant, like a man talking to someone who no longer mattered. One evening, he came home early and found her sitting in the boys' playroom, staring at their family photo. She asked him without looking up, "Do you ever get tired of pretending, Marcus?" He sighed. "Imani, not everything is a performance." She looked at him, her voice level, almost kind. "Then tell me who she is." Silence. A beat too long. Then he said it, the line that would replay in her mind like a song she couldn't turn off. "You don't love me, Imani. You manage me." Something inside her stilled. Not broke, stilled. She didn't scream or cry. She just smiled, slow, patient, and terrifying. And for the first time, Marcus realized that silence could be more dangerous than rage. After that night, the transformation began quietly. She stopped wearing her wedding ring, stopped attending church, stopped calling her friends back. The house grew colder, not from the air conditioning, but from her presence. She started making phone calls after midnight, driving out without telling anyone, and spending hours locked in her study. Pharaoh's kennel lights stayed on all night. Her best friend, Tasha, noticed and came by unannounced. Imani opened the door halfway, her voice even. "Marriage isn't about love," she said. It's about leverage. Then she closed the door. Outside, the garden looked the same. Trimmed, quiet, beautiful. Inside, something was rotting. By the end of that month, even the staff began to whisper. The chef said the madam didn't eat anymore. The nanny swore she heard talking in the halls when everyone was asleep. One voice human, the other low and growling. And through it all, the illusion held. To the public, they were still perfect, the kings and queens of Atlanta. But behind those high walls, love had turned to ritual, trust had turned to silence, and perfection had started to crack. Because what held the Devereaux family together was no longer affection or forgiveness. It was performance. And when a performance ends, the mask always falls. The first sign wasn't a confession. It was a receipt. A folded piece of paper that slipped out of Marcus's jacket one morning as he hurried out the door. Imani didn't mean to pick it up, but it caught her eye. A hotel in Midtown. Dinner for two. A bottle of champagne. One room key. And a date from 3 weeks ago. For a long moment, she just stared at it. The morning light spilled across the marble countertop, and her reflection in the window looked almost peaceful. It wasn't anger that came first. It was humiliation. The kind that burns in silence. The kind that whispers, everyone probably already knows but you. That evening, she set the table as if nothing had happened. The twins were upstairs. The house smelled of roasted rosemary chicken and candle wax. Jazz played softly from the speakers. Marcus walked in, smiling, trying to read her face, the same face that had learned how to hide 1,000 storms. She poured his wine and spoke gently. I found something today. Her tone was light. Her eyes weren't. He froze halfway through a sip. What do you mean? She slid the receipt across the table. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Silence told her everything. The air between them thickened until even the music felt distant. She leaned forward, voice steady, almost tender. You really thought you could embarrass me? Marcus swallowed hard. Imani. But she interrupted softly. No, don't. You don't understand. I don't get hurt, Marcus. I get even. He stood up, muttering something about needing space. She let him go. She didn't raise her voice, didn't follow. She just sat there, staring at the candle wax dripping onto the tablecloth, watching the flame bend and recover. And in that stillness, something inside her shifted. Love didn't die. It just changed its form, into strategy. The next morning, she made a call she hadn't made in years. Calvin Briggs, her father's old associate, a man whose name carried quiet authority in Atlanta's darker circles. His voice rasped through the phone. Your daddy would have handled this himself. You sure you want me digging that deep? Her reply was calm. Not deep, Calvin. Just precise. By sundown, she had what she wanted: photos, names, details. Alana Pierce, 27, marketing consultant. Brown skin glowing in every picture. A bright smile, a soft laugh caught mid-motion. And in one photo, a gold bracelet on her wrist, the same one Imani had given Marcus for their 5th anniversary. That small detail froze her. It wasn't just infidelity now. It was replacement. That night, the sky split open with thunder. Imani stepped outside barefoot, her silk robe clinging to her in the rain. Pharaoh stirred in his kennel, a dark silhouette behind the steel bars. She knelt beside him, feeding him strips of raw meat, her voice low and controlled. People betray, Pharaoh, she whispered. But you understand loyalty. The dog growled softly, eyes glowing amber beneath the floodlight, thunder rumbling like an oath between them. Over the next few days, she became colder, not dramatic, not erratic, just quieter. She began recording Marcus's calls, tracking his car, collecting proof like evidence in a courtroom only she would preside over. Every lie had a folder. Every text, a timestamp. Every picture, a meaning. It wasn't obsession, it was organization. Her father would have been proud. Then she started performing again. Dinner together, Sunday service, family photos. To the outside world, they were whole again. To Marcus, the storm seemed to have passed. But in truth, she was rehearsing, timing, tone, emotion, preparing for the finale she already saw in her mind. Mrs. Hill, the housekeeper, began to notice. She said Imani moved differently now, slower, deliberate, almost ritualistic. One morning, while dusting the fireplace, she found pieces of burnt photographs, faces she couldn't recognize, edges charred beyond saving. When she looked closer, she realized the only thing unburnt was a hand, Marcus's hand, resting on the shoulder of another woman. By the end of that week, Marcus's phone buzzed with a message. Dinner at home tonight. No excuses. He came home uneasy. She greeted him with that same disarming grace, kissed his cheek, set the table, smiled like everything was fine. They ate in silence, her gaze steady, his words shallow. He thought the worst had passed, but she wasn't forgiving him. She was memorizing him. Every movement, every weakness, every way he lied. Because now, she knew exactly how to destroy him. And what no one, not Marcus, not Alana, not even the twins, could feel yet, was that Imani's silence wasn't forgiveness. It was rehearsal. The change didn't arrive with screaming or shattered glass. It came like winter, quietly, predictably, and without mercy. Imani began to live by a schedule no one else could see. Her mornings looked soft. Packing lunches, smoothing collars, kissing sleepy foreheads. Her afternoons were private, doors closed, blinds drawn, a legal pad of names and numbers only she understood. Her nights belonged to Pharaoh. The kennel lights stayed on until dawn. A rhythm of footsteps, a measured voice giving commands that grew more precise each night. Heel, sit, watch, hold, release. Then the new words, ones soaked in meaning. Stay when she said Marcus's name. Watch when she held up his blazer. Guard when she lifted his leather belt. Pharaoh learned her rules like scripture, through hunger, repetition, and reward. She tested him with objects first, a weighted dummy, a burlap sleeve, a bone tied to a rope. Each session ended in silence, no celebration, no affection, just the steady stare of obedience. No frenzy, no chaos, just discipline. Inside the house, that same discipline hardened into ritual. She stopped playing music. She moved through rooms like a shadow, straightening frames, wiping surfaces, checking locks twice. On her desk, 3 neat stacks, receipts, calls, routes. Beside them, a small recorder and a silver whistle that caught the lamp light like a secret. The twins began to notice first. Liam asked why Mommy didn't laugh anymore. Micah started sleeping with the hallway light on. One night, Micah asked what watch meant. Imani smiled faintly. Just a game, she said. But Pharaoh's low growl from outside told a different story. Sometimes, when the boys played, she would hear their laughter from the next room. For a moment, she'd almost smile. Then she'd remember what laughter had cost her, and the warmth would vanish like breath on cold glass. Marcus tried to bridge the distance. He brought flowers, toys for the twins, tickets for a weekend away. Imani agreed, and canceled hours before departure. Every gesture of peace became data. Every apology, a note filed under leverage. When he suggested counseling, she nodded and never called. When he mentioned separation, she said calmly, "We'll keep this dignified," and made a note to contact her father's lawyer. But when he said the word custody, the pen paused mid-sentence. That night, the kennel lights stayed on until morning. She began introducing scent to Pharaoh's drills, Marcus's cologne, shirts, and a worn watch band taken from his drawer. The dog could now pick his scent from a lineup without hesitation. He could track it across the lawn, stop on command, and wait for the final word she had not yet spoken. That word she held inside her like a loaded chamber. Mrs. Hill, the housekeeper, noticed the difference too. She said the madam moved quieter now, slower, deliberate, like she was saving her strength for something. One morning, while cleaning the fireplace, she found pieces of burnt photographs. The twins as babies, Marcus smiling. Only Imani's face had survived the flame. Outside, summer turned to storm season. The magnolias bent under gray clouds. The air tasted like metal. Imani took Pharaoh out into the rain. Thunder rolled as she walked him through the sequence one more time. Heel, sit, watch, hold, release. He obeyed as if the words were law. She added a new command. She stood at the edge of the kennel, voice calm as prayer, and said Marcus's name, then Alana's. Pharaoh's body tensed, waiting for permission that never came. Imani whispered the counterword. Not yet. That night, she tucked the twins in early. They built a city of wooden blocks before bed, roads, towers, and a little bridge that fell when she exhaled too close. Again, she said softly, helping them rebuild. When they finished, she kissed their foreheads and stood watching them sleep, her face unreadable. Marcus told her the next morning he planned to take the boys for the weekend. Imani smiled, a quiet, empty smile. Text me the address. After he left, she opened her desk drawer and laid out the whistle beside a small flash drive. Everything was ready. That evening, rain returned. The lights in the kennel flickered across the wet grass. Pharaoh stood at attention, motionless, waiting. Imani stepped forward, barefoot, whispering each command until his breathing matched hers. When she spoke Marcus's name again, Pharaoh's muscles rippled under his coat, but he didn't move. Not yet, she whispered again, and turned toward the house. Inside, the hallway clock struck midnight. The twins slept upstairs. The dog watched from the darkness. Imani paused by the window, looking out at the yard glowing under lightning. No fear, no hesitation, only precision, only purpose, because by now, love wasn't something she felt. It was something she used. And tomorrow, when the moment came, she would no longer need to whisper not yet. She would finally say now. It began like an ordinary Saturday. Morning cartoons murmured in the background, spoons clinked in cereal bowls, and sunlight spread across the kitchen floor like it had every morning before. Imani moved through the house with the calm of someone who'd already made peace with what was coming. She braided Liam's hair, wiped milk from Micah's chin, straightened their collars. When they laughed, she smiled. Soft, convincing, practiced. At 9:12 a.m., Marcus texted, "I'm on my way. 30 minutes." Imani typed, "Okay." The word hung in the air like a fuse waiting to burn. The house gleamed. Beds made tight. Toys arranged in rows. Curtains drawn just so. Only 3 things broke the symmetry. A leather belt on a chair, a blazer over the armrest, a watch band glinting on the table. Pharaoh knew their scent. At 9:28, she walked the twins to their room. 10 minutes, she said softly. Then we'll go meet Daddy. Liam nodded. Micah tugged her sleeve. Mommy, where's Pharaoh going? She smiled. He's just playing outside, baby. She kissed their foreheads, a second longer than usual, and closed the door. Outside, the air was still and heavy. Pharaoh rose before she reached the kennel, a shape of shadow and obedience. She didn't need to whistle. The dog's eyes were already fixed on her, waiting. Heel, sit. He obeyed. She unlatched the gate and led him toward the patio door where cool air slipped through the house. She stopped, whispered one word. Watch. Pharaoh's muscles tightened. The scent was everywhere. Marcus, the belt, the house itself. But still, She held back the final command. A car crunched over gravel. Marcus. The clock ticked from 9:29 to 9:30. Imani's heart slowed. For a brief moment, she remembered the twins running through sprinklers last summer, laughter like wind chimes. Her hand trembled once. Then she whispered, calm and final. Now, what followed wasn't chaos. It was choreography. A whistle, the click of claws on tile, then silence. Neighbors later said they heard barking, not frantic, but deliberate, followed by something like crying, cut short. Then nothing. At 9:37, she dialed Marcus. I'm at the gate, he said. You're late, she answered. Traffic. Now you know how it feels. The line went dead. He leaned on the horn, shouting her name, but the gate didn't open. 2 minutes later, sirens cut through the quiet street. Police cars forced the gate open. Marcus stumbled after them, desperate, unaware that nothing left inside could be saved. When they entered, Imani was standing at the bottom of the stairs, barefoot, her robe clinging to her shoulders. Thin scratches marked her arms, neither defense nor accident. I tried to stop him, she said. I tried. The officers moved through the house. Radios crackled. Cameras flashed. Marcus fell to his knees in the driveway. He saw her framed in the window, motionless, calm, complete. When someone finally asked why, she blinked slowly. He hurt me first. The wind stirred the magnolias outside. And somewhere in that house, a faint whistle echoed. Hollow, steady, final. By nightfall, the Devereaux mansion was a headline. Reporters crowded the gates, shouting her name. Camera flashes replaced porch lights. And when officers led her out, wrists cuffed, posture perfect, the world saw not a murderer, but a mystery. Within hours, the story spread nationwide. A wealthy mother, a trained dog, 2 lost children, a revenge so cold it felt impossible. In the interrogation room, Detective Raymond Carter sat across from her. You built a business, he said. You raised 2 boys. Help me understand what happened in that house. Imani stared through him. Understanding won't bring them back. Maybe not, he said, but it might help the jury. Her tone was even. The jury won't understand either. Her recordings told the story better than she ever did. Her voice calm, deliberate, describing loyalty, betrayal, and control. In one tape, she said, he taught me love was obedience. I learned the rest myself. The trial was chaos. Prosecutors called her manipulative. Experts called her a sociopath. Commentators called her a symbol of power, race, trauma, ego. But when she finally took the stand, she said only, I love my children, but betrayal is violence. I just returned it. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Her lawyer whispered for silence, but she didn't stop. I didn't murder them, she said. I released them. The verdict was swift, guilty on all counts. 2 life sentences without parole. When asked if she felt remorse, she said, regret is for people who lose control. Pharaoh was euthanized. Marcus sold the house and disappeared. And in her cell, Imani began painting magnolia trees. Each one perfect, symmetrical, and cold. Every night before lights out, she whispered a single word. The guards swore they heard it echo through the corridor. Now, Imani Devereaux's name became legend, whispered, debated, misunderstood. To some, she was a monster. To others, a woman who mistook control for power. Marcus lived quietly, sending white lilies to a children's charity every year. The estate was sold, repainted, renamed, but neighbors said on quiet nights, a faint whistle could still be heard through the magnolia trees. Imani died in her sleep 20 years later, her posture still straight, her hands folded neatly on her chest. No one claimed the body. And in the end, her story remained not about love or betrayal, but obsession. Because control, once worshipped, always consumes its believer. And Imani Devereaux didn't lose control. She became it.